Hello. Welcome everybody to the next installment of our podcast. By any means,
By any means.
I am Kelvin Terrell, and
Derek Taylor.
all right. Welcome to the show. Listen, I'm excited today because I know last episode we had a special guest and two special guests, and we got another special guest. Well, one of them is back, and we have a new special guest. So I'm just excited all around, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with our two brilliant guests because I tell you what, I can't introduce them. You introduce them, Derek.
Well, we have Kelly returning again, the lovely Kelly, and then we also have the beautiful Bridget coming. So, hey, let's go.
Absolutely. So, welcome to the show. Let's bring our guests in.
What up?
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome, ladies. Appreciate you guys stopping by, having a conversation with us.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, if you haven't noticed, the title of today's show is Don't Get Married, Bro. Don't get married. Ooh.
Dun dun dun.
So just like last week, the topic came from you, Derek. So you let me know the story behind it.
Well, I'm actually glad that Kelly, we were able to bring Kelly back because we've had some one-off conversations, and she has this conversation a lot about love and about relationships and about marriage and about divorce, and also Black love. So actually our esteemed guest and colleague Kelly, I actually throw it to her.
I would just say, like, in the overall compass, that I think there are some very successful, happy Black marriages. However, there are plenty of us who are divorced, who are married and not happy. And I just don't know, if it's a generational thing where, some of our parents growing up, the women were not as independent, and so they tolerated more from the man, and because they were more worried about, well, what are they going to do if the man wasn't around, and then I also have a lot of male friends who have told me horror stories of like things women have done to them. So I'm not just putting it all on the fellas, but I've heard horror stories, and I just really think that people may rush in the dating process or don't date properly when it comes to like marriage, like falling in love and all that's just not really enough. And I posted something the other day. My story is about being compatible. And compatibility to me is a thing, but compatibility doesn't always mean like you're the same and everything, because there's that whole yin to your yang also. But there's just so many factors that I wish I would have considered before I got married. But I know for a fact that I rushed. Still not saying that like our divorce is my fault or I'm taking blame. People be like, oh, you got to see, yourself. Nobody's perfect. It takes two. But I totally feel like my divorce was my husband's fault. I feel like he wasn't. I feel like we rushed, but I also feel like he wasn't really ready to be married. And we got pregnant and had a baby. One of his homeboys recently got engaged. So it was like, all right, now I already got a kid by this other woman. Now I have another kid by this woman. And some of my friends are starting to get engaged. I really love her so much, blah, 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 blah. Let's do it. But deep down, I don't think he was ready. And I don't think we were compatible. And it was more of a, we were just in love, like quick, fast, lust, whatever you want to call it. And I just, I'm way more cautious now because dating after divorce is horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's like all the good candidates are married, and some of the ones that are married are cheating. Like, so are they really a good candidate if they're cheating or flirting or whatever? So,
Thanks.
Serious. And so like, what? Go ahead. Yeah, I'm talking a lot. So you want to say something?
No, you're doing wonderful. This is a deep, long, crying, real conversation. So it fits right within the window and concept of this show. So we're going to be flowing a lot with this conversation. So you said a lot of things. I can't unpack them all. We will do that throughout this episode, throughout this conversation. But one thing stood out to me above most things. And you mentioned how you recognized how your partner wasn't exactly ready, but you all still went forward, right? And this isn't your story.
I didn't observe that when it was going on. I feel like I realized that after the fact.
Thank you.
If I thought he wasn't ready, I wouldn't have married him. He appeared to be ready.
So no, thank you, Kelly. That those added points and that clarification makes sense. But where I was going to take it is, again, I think you said a lot, and this conversation falls right within the window and concept of this show. And I can't unpack it all, but we will get to it throughout this whole conversation. But one thing stood out more than most. It was about or related to, hey, you recognized after the fact. Is that correct? You recognized after the fact that your partner wasn't exactly ready, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. You alluded to the fact that you recognized during the marriage that, or after the fact, that your partner wasn't exactly ready for marriage, right? That led to divorce. And again, you're not alone in that. We're all facing that, especially in the Black community. But if we think about those generations that preceded us, right? So like our parents and our grandparents, some of them also weren't ready and got married earlier, but they stayed married. Not all of them. So I'm wondering, what are those factors that led to them staying married versus us actually letting go?
I think I said like one factor that I thought that can y'all hear my son? Because I'm about to hit mute and tell him to be quiet. You hear him?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Hold on. Dorian! I think that like one of the things I said was the women's independence, and right now Black women are the most educated people in the world, and have all types of degrees and business owners and all of that. So it's just like our tolerance level to stick around in certain situations it's not there anymore, because it's like, I don't need you, and that's like me. I've never been with a man because I needed them. If I want you in my space, you should feel lucky, because I don't need you. I handle all of this. But it's nice to have a man around. You know what I mean? It's nice. And he would accompany me. I mean, like he would compliment me well, but I don't need one. And so like a lot of women needed men, because they didn't have much going on for themselves. Social media wasn't around back then. Social media, makes it really easy to cheat or be tempted or to even look or think that the grass is greener on the other side. And those generations didn't have it. And like, those are two really big, major factors to me, because those things are definitely, I don't know. So I think those two things play a huge role amongst some other things, but those I think played a huge role in it. So okay. So
two things. I'm the most, I can't say I'm the most social media adverse person out there because I have to be on there and I have to love it to a certain degree. I just think people, number one, people take social media too seriously.
Seriously. Mhm.
Number one, but the more important topic that I kind of want to talk about is you mentioned that you'd like a man, but you don't need a man. I get it,
Right.
right? Look, women, especially black women, right? I said it before. I'll say it again. I think God's greatest gift to mankind was and is a black woman, right? Um, you deserve to be on a pedestal. The problem is saying that. I have a problem when women say I don't need a man, right? It's nothing personal. I get it. You're smarter, bigger, faster, stronger than we are, so to speak. But it's like, is that not exactly feeding into the uh, the whole reasoning behind breaking the black family apart? Oh, where's Dick?
Awesome.
Well, I'll bring him back in when he comes back. But
Okay.
like, just kind of think about it though, right? Like from my perspective, I feel like black women became what they are today because the black man was taken out of the household. And the more independent black women are, the less they need a man, the less we, procreate, you know what I'm saying? And the longer the black family is just kind of torn apart. So that's my only quarrel with it. It's just that, I appreciate the fact that black women have been, advancing leaps and bounds beyond, what anybody thought was possible 60 years ago, right? But at the same time, it's not really helping bring the black family back together. So how do you feel about that?
I'll talk for a second. I feel a little bit differently. So I don't necessarily feel like I don't need a man. I don't think I've ever necessarily felt like that. I have actually wanted to need a man. But I think for me, what has happened is that they're really the men that I've connected with, and I'm also a divorcee as well. The men that I connected with haven't really wanted to be needed. Like they didn't want to put themselves necessarily in that role of me needing something from them, and potentially what I needed from them might not have been what they were willing to give. So then there was this idea of, okay, yes, I need you. And here's really where my need kind of lies, but you're not willing to kind of adapt and relate and collaborate. And, in the relationship, you're not willing to do that in order to meet the need. And I think that as we've evolved, that needs have changed, right? The need might not be specifically just being a breadwinner and coming home. Now that we're all making money, now we out here making money, maybe there's more of an emotional need that we have time to actually deal with. So I think we have to think of the evolution of need. And I've always wanted to meet a man. I think it's just a matter of most of the men that I've talked to, and again, I'm not putting it all on them, but in my experience, they ain't really wanted to be needed for real, or they wanted to be needed on their level, whatever that looked like to them. And then it's like, oh, well, when I needed something different or more, something based off of who I am as a woman, they weren't interested.
Mm.
So,
I agree with that explanation, actually. I mean, I feel I get that whole thing, what you're saying, as far as like, needs are different. And but I don't know, I just still feel like how you said, I've always wanted to, I wanted to meet, but like to me, like a want, and when you think of the definition of a want and a need is like what you need to survive. And I don't need a man to survive. And I did procreate already. I got kids that's going to go through and, lead the world and build whatever. It's unfortunate it ain't the family, but I can't really say I agree with Calvin when you say, like, isn't that like going against or feeding the whole, breaking the black family? And in my eyes, no, because when I think about the amount, like and this is just me talking about my experience. Again,
No, I understand.
Right.
and the people I know. But because I know there's several things that have occurred in marriages, like several. And I know finances is also like a thing too that breaks up a lot of marriages. But like for me, when I think about what breaks up the Black family, it's these men having kids with women and then they're not with them anymore. They're not around or whatever the situation is. Like or like you said, the incarceration. So whatever the reason is, they're gone. Whether they cheated, they're not around, they're dead, or they're in jail. Whatever it is, that's breaking the Black family. I don't feel like it's because I'm independent. Because just like you said, like we want men, we want them, but we don't need them. And it's so and now that I've been like in a situation where I felt I've been dogged out twice by two men, like who I was in super duper love with and all of that. So like for me, I like walking on eggshells with any relationship that might be potential. And like I said, if it's not if they're not compatible or whatever, I gotta be wooed. Like I'm just not getting back into it. And like I said, so for me, it's when you've been single, you learn you got to do things. You're an adult. You got to take care of stuff. You got to, so it's like, I don't need a man. I don't. But if I was younger and didn't have any kids, maybe that would change. I need a man to have a family. I need a man to procreate with. But I don't need that. So, but yes, I would want it. I want to feel loved. I want to feel protected. I want to be provided for. I want to build with somebody. I want a man to help raise my son. There's a lot of things, but my son, like my son's father, trying to get back in the picture, and it would be smart because he's my son's father, and my daughter, who is not his child, knows him very well, and she likes him. But at the end of the day, I'm not picking a man out of convenience because, he can help with my son or, he can help around the house. I'm not picking a man out of convenience. He's not the caliber of man that I want to be married to or spend the rest of my life with. When I was younger and we had a kid, totally different story.
So what it sounds like to me is that you don't need a man to take care of you physically. It's more of an emotional need that you would like filled, but it's not like 100% necessary in order for you to live a fulfilling life. Is that what it sounds? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I agree with that totally.
Okay.
I think everybody longs for that adult connection with the opposite sex. But I know for me, since I've been through like traumatic things with men, it's gonna be extra difficult for a man to meet my emotional need too. It's gonna be extra difficult. So, I don't even know if it's possible. I'm not even hopeful. I'm not hopeful. I'm not, like you said, I mean, I know the topic of the show is don't get married. I'm not saying I'll never get married again, but it's nothing I'm looking forward to. It's like, people are like, well, why date if you're not dating for marriage? Because I want to be out with a man, because I want to have fun. I may want to learn something, or I may want to have sex. I don't necessarily want to get all deep and connected and be married for sure. But I know that's part of like my healing process and stuff too. Like I gotta heal and all that. But just like I said, it's just there's a lot of foolery going on social media and even not in social media. I mean, I've met men out in public with rings on that try to talk to me and don't even care. So it's just like, I don't know.
I think that was my point though, right? So my point was that it's not high on it's not a priority of yours, and to Bridget's point, you kind of, I feel like we can't, a lot of times we say things that are very vague statements, and they, we leave it open to interpretation. And, a lot of times people can take whatever that put their own label on it, their own definition, and then take it and run with it. And it ruins a lot of people going forward, and they wind up making a whole lot of mistakes. Just because there's not clarity around, kind of what we mean with statements like by any means, for example, right? Like what exactly does by any means mean? Like how far are you willing to go in order to, have a relationship or not have a relationship? You see what I'm saying? So I don't know. I just feel like a lot of statements we leave kind of vague, and there's a lot of young people watching who are very impressionable, and they can take things out of context and apply definitions that were not your true intentions. So I just feel like in general we have to make sure that we're providing context around some of the statements that we're saying. Not saying that you're wrong, right? Because you're 100% right in feeling the way you feel. I mean, your life has been, your opinions and your feelings are dictated by your life experiences, right? And the things you've learned, and been taught. So you're not wrong. It's just, context kind of matters in certain situations, especially when young kids. As a father of two little girls, like I kind of don't want them growing up a certain type of way, right? Be independent, but at the same time, there's certain needs that kind of need to be filled. Now, how far, how high on your list of priorities are they? That's up to you to decide. But, that's kind of where I was going with that. Sorry.
Yeah, and I honestly think that's a great segue to kind of get back to the genesis or the beginning of our lives, right? So if we can turn the conversation there to get us back to us as adults, right? I'd love to hear some of our experiences from childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, and to where we are today, and knowing the external factors from a societal standpoint, that socialization that we experience, the socialization that we experience in our own communities and our homes. Because I know some of us on here were either a product of a single parent home or either a dual parent household. And some of us are only children, and some of us have siblings. So how do those things affect us, and how does that tie into how we want to need? Excuse me, what our needs are, what we want, what our expectations are. I think that's a huge conversation too, because I don't think a lot of us have.
Oh my goodness. Oh, there you go. He right back.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of us have fair expectations about ourselves and externally to other people. So like how was our socialization through society and our communities and our home, how have those things affected the way that we view ourselves, how we portray ourselves, and what we look for? Because we all know that we're born with certain things. We have innate traits and characteristics, right? But then there are also things that are learned. And when we learn things, that therein lies free will, right? Like life is about the decisions and choices you make. So we either decide to continue with what we saw or turn away from it, or we decide to wallow in what we have experienced and not allow ourselves to even. And here's another deeper subject too. How can we truly know what we want when we don't even know who we are ourselves, right? I think a lot of the problems, the society issues we have today stems around your self-realization, your self-actualization, your self-awareness. So if you're not able to introspectively understand who you are and think about and understand and appreciate your own self-love and respect, how can you portray that to others? How can you give somebody else love and respect? So I'd like to hear from you all as to how has socialization affected your views on relationships and yourselves and marriage moving forward?
I can touch on that a little bit. So thinking I'll just stick with kind of my local and immediate, which would be like my family upbringing. So for me, I was started in a two-parent home. My father was a drug addict and was abusive, went to jail. And so then my mom was left with me and my two younger brothers, raising us on her own. And she came from kind of a Black middle class upbringing. And then, through circumstances, and this is no slight to public assistance, but, ended up being on welfare, right? So she kind of came through a lot of different experiences. And she never remarried. So my mother never remarried. I never really saw her dating. I never really saw her really even kind of even those interactions with men. Her way of kind of approaching relationships after her relationship was just to kind of shut down. And while I didn't know how to name that at the time, that was what I was seeing.
Yeah.
On top of that, I didn't have a relationship with my father at all. So he was in the city, he was in Pittsburgh, but we never saw each other. We never connected. We might have went to shopping like once or did something like maybe once or twice in all of my years. So no connection with my father either. And I think how that played out with me in relationships is I dated men, but they were never like the men that I was, choosing to be with, right? I might have been, let's say I was dating a guy who was like super into me, very, very affectionate, like all these things. I didn't really know how to receive those kind of interactions. And so I was more prone to connect with the guys who were maybe a little bit slippery. Like you couldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like they was here in a moment and they wasn't, or, they were in and out kind of emotions, or they weren't as, and I would say as I've gotten older, one of the reoccurring themes has been they haven't really been able to be there for me emotionally. But guess what? My father had never been there for me emotionally. He was never the guy that was like, hey, how are you doing? You okay? Let me pat your boo-boo. You're beautiful. All of those things. And so it definitely played out, I think, into the men that I connected with. Now, again, I'm not giving excuses. I don't think the type of man per se that I connected with is an excuse to treat women badly. Like just because you have a certain personality traits, that don't give you, just cause to be a jerk in relationship. But I definitely can see where the genesis of my life, where I always say like Little Bridget, right? Where I see how Little Bridget interacted or learned things or didn't see things, right? My main examples of relationships was my grandparents. And my grandfather, they had been together forever. My grandfather always did stuff for my grandma. He fixed things, but he wasn't really affectionate either, right? So there was kind of these some tapes, I guess, that were playing as I was going into my own relationships.
Yeah. So for me, it's funny. I grew up in a 2-parent household. My parents were together my entire life till my dad passed away. Still, my parents hit rough patches sometimes, which is normal in relationships. And one in particular, it lasted for a very long time. Eventually they got over it, but I'd never seen. I know what it looks like to have two people in the same house but not be there together. You know what I mean? And that's something that I kind of vowed never to have. So when my marriage didn't last, right? It was. Even though I wasn't the one to end it per se, I definitely was the one who closed the door to mending that relationship, because I thought that it would lead to what I saw and I vowed never to experience. So I was like, let me just go ahead and end this now before we wind up hating each other. And I, at the end of the day, like we're still jovial. If I see her, I'll say hi, we'll still speak. It's not like we hate each other or anything like that. I wish the best for her. And I'm pretty sure she wishes the best for me. But at the end of the day, it just didn't work out. So, I could definitely understand dating and wanting to, I saw the not wanting to date after being divorced, because I'll tell you what, after I got divorced for a while, I was like, no, I'm not. I'm probably never going to get married either again. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't in my list of things to do. But, at the end of the day, I'm still a giver. I'm still I give the shirt off my back. It's just that, I've learned to keep my expectations as low as possible. Right? So that there's no way you can disappoint me, because I guess, understanding the independent woman concept, right? Like I don't want to have to depend on anybody for anything. So I keep my expectations low, whether it be in my like romantic relationships or professional relationships. Nobody can ever disappoint me because I'm already prepared to do everything myself anyway. And I think that's a scar that has yet to heal, to be honest with you, from my first marriage. And going forward, it's made me in current relationships, like it's made me very cautious about how I proceed, and what passes I'm willing to give and what red flags I'm willing to ignore. And I'm much you know better about working those things out, before we get to the point of making that long-term commitment. Because I just feel like, in another conversation, maybe we can touch on this later, marriage has become a business contract.
Mm.
um,
Hmm.
and it's not really about pure love anymore. And it kind of has to be because of the society we live in. But
I was about to say,
maybe,
should it be?
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, it's different. So you got to approach it from a different perspective.
Yeah, Kelly, do you want to go, or you want me to share in? Well, you can go.
I mean, my parents were married for over 30 years, and when my dad passed last year, that's he's always been a stand-up man, a provider, a protector, never, humiliated my mother that we know about. Um, he was there. Um, I can't say towards the end of the relationship my dad was as happy. Um, but he was there. And so I feel like I had that example of what it means to be a family and to love each other. And to fill all of those needs that we referenced to. Both my parents worked full time. But I have so many great memories of family activities or things with him or things with my mom or whatever. So, my upbringing was good. My grandparents were also married for a lot of years. Um, so, I think that if I am dating someone in terms of, with a goal of having something more serious, I'll probably look for a lot of qualities that my father had in the men that I date, plus some additional ones. But I also feel like, you know, Derek, you said something about like knowing who you are and, being able to like have the realization of like, who you are in a relationship. I feel like I may have not always known that, early on, but I do feel like I know that now. And, there's certain things, like I said, I know are not going to work well for me. There's certain things I may not be strong in where, hey, I might not be the best candidate for this person, even though I love all these things about you, or I like all these things, it, that thing I posted on my story a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a woman talking about how like the compatibility thing, like where you could be dating someone and you feel like, oh my God, this is it. Like everything is, great. It showed like a circle, but like a square fitting inside the circle. So like, you're fitting in that person's circle. So, that person might feel like, wow, they have everything I want, but the square is not really getting to, like, it's not filling in the circle. So I can't really explain what it meant, but it just I don't think that I just don't think I don't, like I said, I feel like in our age range, a lot of the quality men that I feel are quality are married already. I don't feel like there's a lot of single quality men. Because shit, if there is, bitches would be bagging them up and doing what they need to do to try to get them. I mean, I'm serious.
Right.
You're gonna put more effort into a man that you feel really got it going on. And I mean, and I don't just mean like materialistically or physically, but like even with what you said, Bridget. Oh, this man is a good communicator. This man is feeling these emotional needs and like all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So like, you're gonna give a man that has potential that type of energy if they're a quality candidate. But if they're not, you at our age, you probably wouldn't. But I think, like I said, when I was younger, I probably, wasn't basing it on the whole compatibility thing, because I didn't even know what that was. You know what I'm saying? When I met Dorian's father, it was more of a, dang, he really got my back. Like, he's a ride or die. Like, I'm in a new city. I don't know nobody. He holding it down. He making sure I'm straight with certain things. But did the nigga meet my emotional needs? No. You know what I'm saying? He was meeting physical needs, and then by then it was too late. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, when
it's not enough.
Early on, it was just like different. But I feel like, you learn from your experiences. And so, like, there's a dude in my space right now, and it's funny because I told a couple people about him, and they were like, this is different, Kelly. He's not your type. I'm like, well, first of all, I don't feel like I got a type. I do have some physical attributes that I like more than other attributes. But as far as a type, no, that's false. My ex-husband and my son's father look totally different.
Okay.
And they're very two different types of men.
Right.
My father, hood, brown skin, nigga from Southeast. And my daughter's father is a mixed school, dated white women, surfer boys type of look, whatever you want to call it. But he's muscular, whatever. So, like, I don't feel like I have a type. You know what I'm saying? But again, there's just so many factors. I do want to be attracted to who I'm dealing with. And I think we talked about this last time. Like, yes, I want to be loved. I want to have I want to be mentally stimulated. I want to feel like I don't need I've never been about money. I mean, I don't want no broke ass struggling motherfucker, but I know that I don't have to have the CEO or this lawyer or this doctor. I've never been about that because they work too much anyway. They're not gonna be able to fill my quality time or emotional need fulfillment if I had one of them anyway. And that's important to me, to be present in the relationship. So, like, it's just, I don't know. I just don't, I don't even know what the hell I'm saying anymore. I just feel like there's not a lot of candidates that are checking all the boxes, and I'm not going to settle. I feel like I know my worth. I'm not going to settle, and I'm not about to be, caught up in something that appears to be like, oh, he might be like, I just feel like people need to really slow down in the dating process and take their time to really get to know each other. People start having sex, and then it's just like all this stuff be getting mixed up when you start having sex, and deeper feelings that really wouldn't be there without it start occurring, and it's just like, it's a mess. So I don't think people date accurately and get a real chance at getting to know each other.
I was saying, like, with me, when I was, like, I guess looking, or when I was wanting to be found or whatever, I was looking for like a leader. Like, I wanted somebody who was a leader in the community, who was, taking care of stuff, that they were accomplished, that, they were doing things and maybe even had a business. And, so I had not necessarily a profile, but there were things that I knew that I liked, which I still like. But I think what I didn't understand is that all those, like, I didn't understand that there is what I call like a public man and a private man. And so sometimes the man that you get ain't the same guy that you're going to get in private. And I have to love now the public man. I got to love the private man. And so when I connected to my son's father, and I kind of fell in love with this outward man. But as I got to know the inward man, or the private man, I wasn't feeling that guy as much. But I kind of decided, I was like, well, I can kind of figure, like, I'll make it work, if that makes sense, because I love the fact that he's so involved in the community, and I love the fact, but I was still not necessarily getting my needs met, if that makes sense. Like, right, I had some needs and they weren't getting met, but he's out there doing all these other things for the community. But guess what? It came down to situations where it was like, well, I got to go out and do this. I'm like, well, I need you here. And there's something I'm like, well, I have a need. Well, I got to go. Like, I got to go out to this, event, or this group is doing this organization is doing this, and I got to go. And I'm like, well, I got a new baby in the house, and, I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling, and I would like you to stay here. And it was like, well, this is what I got to do. Now, great father. I'm not, saying excellent father. However, when it came to my need as a wife, as a woman, there wasn't much interest to be able to do that particular work. And I think it comes down to the work. Like, we all come in with some type of deficit because nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. Right. He wasn't perfect. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe I wasn't ready. Right. But then after we made the decision, we made real grown-up decisions, right, to have our child. We made a real grown-up decision to get married. There's still grown-up decisions that got to be made after that. Like, the grown-up decision is, am I going to still be out a lot, or am I going to be in? Right. Or if he comes to me and he's saying, look, I'm not really feeling what's going on around this house. You ain't cleaning the way, whatever. If that's the issue, or whatever it is, the grown-up decision is, okay, am I going to get an attitude about it, or am I going to try to adjust it and meet whatever the need is? And I think I say this too a lot. There's not a lot of differences between good marriages and bad marriages, right? The same shit happens in good marriages that happens in bad marriages.
100%.
That happens in great marriages. The same shit. The difference is, or one of the differences is, at least in my opinion, is the decisions that happen before, during, and after.
100%.
Before, during, we have opportunities in moments to make some decisions. It ain't that he ain't out there being tempted and in a great marriage. No, he out there, he seen her booty, he feeling her. But he made a decision right?
Yep.
Or he made a decision during, like, okay, or there was a decision post, right? It happened. We got to get through this. What does that look like? And she can make the decision whether or not she want to stay. Right? We make decisions. And so I think what and I won't say awesome, but the opportunity for me that has come from divorce is to be able to look at things and look at relationships and look at how I connect with men from a lens that I never had before. Before I got married and then got unmarried, if that makes sense. Like, nothing surprises me anymore. I hear the wildest shit. My friends will be like, let me tell you about your husband. They tell you the wildest shit. And I'm like, I'm not even surprised. My other question on the other side is like, what's going on? Like, what are they doing? Like, what's the work? What's happening now? What's happening next? Like, because, like, all the same shit's going to happen, period.
Yeah. No, so Bridget, the question, you mentioned that because of your experiences, and the things that you've heard from, like, the different people in your life, your circle or whatever, you see things differently and nothing surprises you. What does that mean in terms of how you move forward in your future relationships or your current relationship?
I think it allows me to give a level of grace. And what that means is that there's not, again, we're not making excuses for bad behavior, right? Bad behavior is bad behavior. But I think what I can say now is that I'm coming into a situation with, like, broken pieces that have been, like, put back together that maybe don't look exactly like what they look like. With the, the vase breaks and you try to put it back together, you're not gonna be able to put it back together exactly the way that the vase looked when it was brand new, right? But it still might be a vase that you can patch up and put water in and put a flower in and still use, right? It's still useful. And I think that we're all kind of coming in as, like, broken vases that are still useful, but we don't maybe look like what we look like when we were new. And so what that means to me, I think at this point, I'm interested in the broken pieces. I'm not interested in perfection. I'm interested in the real of me coming into a relationship and someone else coming into a relationship and being able to be vulnerable, being able to expose themselves, being like, that to me is a key of something that is real and worth pursuing. Now, is that always easy in practice? No, because who I am and who I've been and how I've approached relationships, I'm still trying to, at times, get past that, right? Like, it's an active, there's active work in that. But when I think about it and when I'm in spaces now where I can connect, I'm a lot more, I don't know what the word is. I'm just like a lot more mild. I'm looking, aware is one, but it's not even aware. It's like, I think dealing with the man, I'm talking about like a woman to man thing. Like I'm a woman, I'm a man. He wants to be able to literally, like, figuratively and literally lay his head in my chest and feel relief. And so then my question is, how can I provide that relief in that release? And so, and I've noticed, not all the time, but even in just trying it out. Like sometimes I just practice on people. Maybe that people I know I'm not gonna be with, but sometimes I just practice to see how he responds. And it's very interesting that the response that I get in those scenarios, even when I've tried it in a situation that maybe I know, like, is a lot more open than it has been in the past. So the lens that I'm looking through is that really we're all scared to be vulnerable. We're all nervous about getting hurt. We've all been hurt and been through some shit, like, and so we're just trying to get through it. But I think I try to come in at least a little bit with a little bit more awareness and understanding, grace. And I just try to practice and like do little things that like make myself more vulnerable in order to see that person, see the other person become more vulnerable, because I release, it creates space for the other person to release. So that man feels that he might not have the capacity to do it. He might not be in the space of self-reflection to think about it in the way that I am, but I think about it. And so maybe I can create some open space for that dialogue. And I've seen, again, even in maybe not forever relationships, I've seen it work. I've seen it work in sexual relationships. I gotta keep it funky. Like, I've practiced it, and it's maybe someone that I'm connecting with sexually. The connection is way crazier, when I move in that space of allowing for vulnerability. Then, so this is a win. But again, trying to put that in practice. Even right now, I'm in a space where I don't know if I really want to get married. Some days I don't. It just depends on the day. But I do want real connections.
What's funny? What's funny? Yeah. I probably shouldn't say this. People probably don't think I'm like this, but I am. So what hit home just now, Bridget, when you what hit home just now, Bridget, when is you talked about the impact of vulnerability. And you know how sometimes, sexually speaking, like we talked about, what people pose a question, what type of sex is the best sex? Whether it's I love you sex, or whether it's makeup sex or drunk sex or whatever, right? But what I found is sometimes when you are able to break through the barrier with people and actually expose yourselves to each other, mentally, physically, spiritually, like emotionally, like that opens up the floodgates, if you will. Like actually that being able to have, I'll call it, instead of like drunk sex or makeup sex, is that vulnerable sex. Like that'll get the juices flowing. That's that wet right there.
Right, we're grown-ups. And again, like to Kelly's point, like, right, we got needs. There's things that we need, and all these other, and so we shouldn't have to, at this point in my life, I shouldn't have to negate one need for another. I should be able to get the things that I need in all areas, if not all, right? And so what does that, and it might not be 100% in all, but I should be able to touch on all of those things. Why? Because I know that it's out there. I know that it's possible, and I know that I can give it as well. So I just that the lens of we're not perfect. He's not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I think releasing the expectations, but without fear. So I think that's a different side of it. Like, I don't have any expectations, but I'm also not afraid.
So Kelly, let me ask you in that same vein, right? Do you find yourself, like, are you able to put aside certain expectations? Like, if you're looking, do you find yourself looking through that lens of, what are the, am I holding my standards a little bit too high, or are certain expectations unrealistic, or whatever the case may be? Do you find that is a barrier to, or are you able to weed people out really quickly just based on whatever your expectations are based on your experiences?
I feel like I get turned off fast,
Okay.
which could be a great thing, or it could be a bad thing. It could be a bad thing if, maybe I get turned off of something that's minute. Bridget, you said something about grace. So, maybe if I get turned off and it's something that is like really wasn't that big of a deal, I could be missing out on a great person. But also, if I get turned off, it might be a blessing. Like, damn, this this could have turned into something a lot worse had I stuck around. So, I don't know. I feel like I've definitely grown in maturity in terms of the type of person I would want in a more permanent space. And like I said, I feel like I've grown a lot in how I would date that person. And so I don't feel like my expectations are too high. I'm not really looking for anything. I've been doing the whole work on myself, focus on me, and right when it aligns, it'll happen. You know what I mean? And like I said, for me, I feel like I've been thinking outside of the box. I know y'all talked about sex for a minute, and it's like I there could be a person that I am into, some person that I'm into because they stimulate me mentally a lot, or they're resourceful or whatever. But like I couldn't even have sex with somebody if they did something that turned me off or can't stimulate me mentally. My body just is not gonna work because I'm gonna be like, this motherfucker dumb as fuck. But he looked good. No, I just can't even do that anymore. Now, if you'd have caught me fresh out of my marriage, that's a different story. I might have been like, hey, ready, no matter what it is. I don't care what you said. Shut up. So like, but now I just feel like I know more of what I think would be a good fit for me. And like I said, I don't feel like I see a lot of it. And then I get all these men who seem like they would really be good candidates on paper to fulfill all these needs, but like physical attraction is a thing. And I can't say, oh, you treat me like this, you treat me like this, you this. But then I look at you and it doesn't do anything for me. So like, I'm just taking my time. I actually want to like divert the conversation a little bit because we have been talking. A lot of people keep saying, put in work, you gotta put in work, you gotta put in work. And I just wanted to say and get your opinions on how having children affect that. I feel like a lot of times when you start having kids, it's much harder to put in the work because you have other responsibilities now. You have other people you have to make sure are going through things. You're much busier, and I don't think husbands and wives date each other as much. Like, you got to be meaningful. Like you Derek, Mecca and all that. They always posting on how they did this or they did this or they did this or they did this. And I think you got to be intentional with planning time with your spouse and doing things that he enjoys or she enjoys, and the kids aren't involved. Like, because that's how you courted each other in the beginning when it was fun and it was, but then when you get hit with the kids and you got this schedule, you got this, you got to do this, you got this, y'all are drained. How can y'all work on each other and y'all are drained? And so I feel like doing the work sounds hard, period. Okay. But then when you add kids into it, it's much harder to do the work. And I don't, so I just wanted to shed light on that factor that I thought that a lot of relationships get a little more stressed after kids. Not necessarily.
That's true though, because nothing ruins a mood more. We talked about sex, but nothing ruins a mood more than hearing your daughter crying in the background saying "Daddy, Daddy." Then you hear the feet pitter patter coming through the hall. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh Lord, have mercy. Let me take a knee real quick. Let me take a knee real quick, man. Sorry, Derek, I did that one. That was my fault. But yeah, it's true, man. You gotta figure out ways to kind of date your spouse, man. It's tough because when you add in the fact that a lot of women are independent now, and if you're a single mother and you do have a job and career, um, when you're a guy coming into that situation, you know what I'm saying? You kind of have to understand that there are a lot of priorities in that woman's life, and you may not necessarily be near the top of that list. So you got to kind of be cognizant of the decisions that you're making and the attitudes that you're catching, because you can't, court this woman like you want to, because her time doesn't necessarily permit it. So I mean, it's a lot of factors that go into it, and it's hard. It's hard to date from that perspective, especially when kids are involved. So I totally understand, whether you're dating or in a relationship, that you do need to find a way to put the work in. As hard as it sounds, there's got to be some type of strategic plan in place. So I agree wholeheartedly.
I was gonna say I haven't met anyone yet that's met my son, or I haven't met anyone yet that I think is worth at this point meeting my son. So I haven't gotten into that space. I did married. Obviously, we had a child before we got married, so we came into the marriage with a child, and so that dynamic was kind of already there. And yeah, it definitely caused some stress and struggles for sure. But I think it's something that we could have gotten past. We had a lot of support from family, I think, but again, putting in the work would have been from a strategy perspective, leveraging family, leveraging, different things. But I don't think that there was a desire to, at least on my ex-husband's end, to make it a priority. So that there's that. But I think with me being, being divorced and having a son, I'm very protective of my son. And at this point, and I'm not saying that women who bring men around their children aren't protective. I'm just saying with me at this point, I just haven't met anybody yet that I even want my son to meet. I'm just like, And then I think, and I'm also enjoying, I think, the idea on some levels of having kind of the dating part and my mothering part over here, and figuring out when those two need to intertwine. And most of the time when I wait on it, it ain't worth it. I'm like, you don't need to meet them. So, yeah. But
how long do you give it?
This is interesting how Kelly brought it up, and I think getting us thinking about not only in marriage, but then just being in the dating realm too. Like, what does that look like? How does that work?
That's an interesting. Sorry, Derek. I just had a quick question, real quick. That's an interesting concept, right? Because for me, I tell all my little nieces and all my little cousins and whatnot, like, give it 90 days, right? Because it's hard to keep up a facade for 90 days, before you decide to just dive in head first. You know what I mean? So, I mean, what kind of time do you set a time frame, or do you just go right off of like feel? I'm just curious.
I don't have a time frame. Like I said, it hasn't happened for me yet. I don't have a time frame, but one of the things I do in order to keep separation, even with my friends, and Kelly knows this, is that I don't give guys names. Like, to my friends, and am I saying too much? Somebody gonna hear this, like, but it's like such and such Bay, right? Like, wherever I met him, like, okay, he's a manager for such, okay, manager Bay, and then that helps for me to keep some level of separation. I can tell I'm starting to get serious when I'm starting to give him names in conversations, and it's like, oh yeah. And this isn't a Bay or nothing like that, but I'm like, oh yeah, Tucker. I'm gonna say Tucker, right? Yeah, Tucker. And I'm just like talking, right? And it's like Tucker this and Tucker that and Tucker this. I'm like, oh gosh, he ain't manager Bay no more. He's now Tucker. So I don't know. There's just for me, there's like a switch that kind of happens, but I do think there needs to be time. I don't put a time limit, but again, no one has met my son yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 takeaways. Kelvin, thanks for that segue to Bridget, because 2 points. Black film, one by Tyler Perry. Why did I get married? We've discussed this. And then 2, Think Like a Man, Steve Harvey. We're discussing that point too. So I find that funny. And it's interesting because actually maybe the first date I went to the movies to see Think Like a Man by Steve Harvey with my current wife now. And actually we had 2 kids before we got married too, so I'm in the same boat. And to get to that, I have an interesting perspective. Kelvin, I agree but disagree in terms of like, I think there's a separation between dating a woman that's a mother versus being married to the mother of your children, right? In terms of how you have to do that work to date your either girlfriend or your spouse. I find there to be a difference. I found it to be a hella easier. Shout out to our West Coast people. Like, I found it to be hella easier to date a woman that actually had a child, a single woman, a single mother, because I felt like, and this is to your point, Bridget, some of those women, not all, they're able to separate their motherhood through from their datinghood, if you will. So they can separate that, and as long as we communicating, if we right here, hey, look, give me this window of time that I can communicate with you. I know what your schedule is. I can contact you. I know that these days are good, and we're good to go. Especially when I'm single.
So in other words, you ain't trying to be stepdaddy just yet.
Nah.
I think it was. What I got from that, I didn't get the stepdaddy thing. I mean, well, yeah, you were just trying to move more freely, and you didn't want a chick at the time who just had all this availability being on you too much. Well, that's what I took from it. Since you said you were like dating and just dating,
No, but Kelly, actually, I think you both are right. So I love the dynamic in this relationship. I mean, excuse me, not this relationship, or the relationship in this conversation, because you're both right. Like, when I was single, there may have been somebody I was more interested in. Bridget, to your point of, hey, maybe they're not a work bae, maybe they're actually a Laura, if you will. I didn't want to name any names that might call.
Never name names.
Yeah, I ain't want to get in trouble. But so, I mean, no, Kelvin, you're right, but then Kelly, you're right too, because if I was single, I'm mingling. And some women, or single parent women, they can separate their parenting from their relationships, and they're able to communicate easily with you about, hey, these are the times and windows that I'm available, and I'm like, okay, that works for my schedule right here, so we good. But now let me get into marriage, Calvin. In marriage, bruh, and actually, so from an engaged standpoint, me and my wife were actually engaged, but also co-parenting, right? So we were in a relationship, we were engaged, but we were parents. And Lord have mercy, did that throw a wrinkle into the equation? Like, now we got work, commute, every other hat that we have, plus we got a parent. So how do you have time to date? And quite frankly, a lot of us have moved away from where our families are. So I grew up where, my great grandmother was down the street. I was at my nana, my grandmother's house. We got cousins in the next county or up a next street, so we were that close, right? But now I'm still in my same state, but I'm 3 hours away, so I don't even have support. And my wife is from Arkansas, so her family's not nowhere to be seen. So our shit is hard as fuck, because how do we have the time when we don't really have people available? So that was when we were engaged and co-parenting, and also now married. And then shit changes when you get married. People say they don't, but man, I'll tell you, things change, because life changes constant. So life changes and people change. So that work becomes harder, whether it's about being able to afford the time to date for various reasons or factors or issues, but just in general, it's just harder, man, as you're married, especially when you're married with children, man. So, and funny I say that, I watched Married with Children, the show, growing up. Now I get that shit.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's definitely hard to date and be married, especially when you don't have a lot of help. But Derek, you've been here for a minute. You got a lot of Hamptonians in the area. y'all just ain't trusting of your friends to watch them kids, because you could probably have a little more help than what you're saying. Because my family is not here either, but I've been here at least 13 years. And I have a few people that I trust with my children. However, it's like, I don't really want, like, you want me to find a babysitter, put makeup on, put some heels on, and either take away from some rest that I could have, some gym time, or just self-improvement, reading, or working on my business. You to take me for a drink, nigga? No, I'm not. I don't want to go for a drink. But if you come up with like something that's more interesting, I'm a very active person. If you come up with something active that catches my attention, or I like to eat, then maybe I'll do it. But it's just like a lot of men be putting in minimal effort. They put in minimal effort or too much effort. Minimal effort meaning like they are not really planning well, or maximum effort means like I've had a few, I guess, fake sugar daddy type, whatever they thought they were, and try to do the most and like spend the most and think that if I see this money, then I'm gonna like be interested. And that's not never been me. Like, it's just not, that's not me. I'm sure it is that for some women, but it's just not. So it's just like, man, I don't even be wanting to do stuff sometimes. Just because it's just like, I don't know. And I live in the DMV. I feel like there's a lot of good, dope men here, but I also think a lot of the men here know that they're like cream of the crop, and they are like, you think like our expectations or we're not realistic. Well, there's a few men that think their shit don't stink, and they ain't about to be with XYZ. So like, I think it's difficult for women to find a good man too, because sometimes they might be looking for something that is on another level.
I got a quick story. I went out with a guy in the DMV because I lived down there for a little bit too. And it was a reconnection after years, right? So somebody that I knew, we were familiar with each other, kept up on social media. We're really excited to get back together or whatever. And he's doing really, really well. Like, he's making good money. Like, he travels a lot. Like, I'm just like, oh, this could be something. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I like to travel. You like to travel. Where are we going? And as we were moving out, no, it was when we were going out, like, we're out and we're eating and we're kind of hanging out, and it's pretty cool. Everything's pretty free. Like I said, we already had an established like friendship. We were already friends. And then like, as I'm holding like my glass of wine, he was like, well, your hand is supposed to go like on the stem of the glass. And not and I was like, first of all, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, like, it really, in this context, it doesn't matter. We're getting reacquainted. You're just trying to get to know me. And it's like, you're being real nitpicky right now. And even if like silently in your mind, it just irritated you a little bit, if you're really actually trying to get to know me, that is not the time to say that my hand you need to love my hand wherever my hand is. You need to compliment my nails. Okay. Warming up that wine. And I just say that, that I feel like, again, going back to expectations, who's trying to get to know me for me, like in my quirks? You know what I'm saying? The fact that I put my hand up there, or the fact that I, curl my lip when I say whatever, or whatever the intricacies are about Bridget, who's actually really trying to get to know Bridget? Like, who's trying to get to know me? And that's always an interesting thing. And it's like, especially to me, the more status that you go and the more money that you go, and it's not that I don't like, because I'm cool with it. I'll take a sugar situation, but I say all that to say, like, then it comes with all these, like I can't be, I don't know what I'm supposed to be, but whatever it is, it seems like it's not working out for whatever their needs are. But I don't know if it's because there's so much choice. They have so many options. And so now they're real nitpicky of every single option, but I'm like, miss me with that. I'm like, who is trying to get to know me? finding or being able to be found, or finding someone who is just totally like 100% like, I see you, I'm into you, I just want to get to know you. That's a little hard to find right now.
New topic.
You know, hold on. Let me touch on that real quick, Derek. I was just gonna say that it's a number. It's a pure numbers game, right? At the end of the day, it's literally more. It's probably twice as many women in the DMV than it is men, right? So to your point, Kelly, a lot of the good men are probably already married, right? The rest of them are either dead or in jail somewhere, right? So, I mean, I say that like kind of joking, but I'm also serious to a certain extent. But I think that at the end of the day, what men have to determine is, I think, how they treat a woman, and how they, when they're supposed to be complimenting your nails, they're nitpicking about how you're holding your glass. I think it all boils down to how you actually view the role of that woman in your life, right? And it could come from your upbringing, but at the end of the day, if you see your woman as your accessory, then yeah, you're gonna nitpick over things that aren't really that important. But if you're like me and you see your woman as like the best part of you and like your piece, then you'll want to make sure that she's in the best condition that she can possibly be in, and happy, so that, Bridget, I think you said earlier, that a lot of men want to just be able to come to you and lay their head in your chest, right? But when you think about what you're trying to accomplish as a man, you're out, you're fighting the world, you're trying to slay Goliath, you know what I mean, with a sling. And when I come home, the last thing I want to do is have to fight you. You know, so at the end of the day, I think it all depends on how you view your woman. And unfortunately, numbers aren't necessarily on your side.
And one other quick, in this another data that I went on. This guy is a musician and like kind of different than the other guy, not as like corporate, whatever. And he'll probably watch this anyway, but whatever. So, and we had a conversation about like IG girls on IG, like, and with big booties. That's not I'm not built like that. I call straight up and down crew. But so anyway, we're having this whole conversation, and he begins to like rank, girls, and like most guys are gonna want this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not this, this, and this, and you're obviously most guys. So why are you here? And so he begins to like rank women, and I'm like, well, rank me. So here, right? Like I'm leaning in. What you gonna say? So there's a lot of things he could have said. He could have abstained. He could have not answered the question. Don't answer the question at all. Like don't answer it at all, right?
Plead the fifth.
He answered the question, right? And he was like, well, from a Pittsburgh perspective, you're like a 7, but like nationally, you're like a this, and like internationally. And I was like,
Hey, go ahead, dig your grave, bro.
it was like dead in the water. Again, him and I we are cool at this point, but that from a relational standpoint, like, right, that going back to just like wanting to be able to be comfortable enough to kind of, you're not putting me in a space of feeling comfortable. First of all, if you with me, I'm a 10, period. I don't care if you think I'm a 5, for real. I'm a 10 because I'm with you and you saying you want to be with me. 10, 12, as a matter of fact. You know what I'm saying? But on top of that, where's the, we got to build each other up.
Absolutely.
Where's the affirmation? Where are the affirmations? No, go ahead, Kels.
But see, that goes back to what Kelvin said. So, like, when you said the first thing about the dude holding you was holding a glass, right? That was like y'all first date after reconnecting, right?
We've known each other.
Was that like a first date after y'all reconnected?
First date after reconnecting, but we've known each other for 15 years.
Okay, and then the dude who ranked you, were y'all like actively dating, or were y'all just talking, or?
We probably have been. We have been on at least by that time 8 to 10 dates.
Okay, well that's different, because I was gonna say something else. I was gonna say, like how Calvin said, it depends how you view that woman. And clearly, if he's saying all of that, he had no intentions of building or trying to, be an important person in your life, because that's not what you would do or say to the woman who you put on, who you are planning to be with. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that also goes back to communication and keeping it real with somebody. Like, if this, if you know that, hey, we're just having fun dating, then that's what it is. Maybe you might say some shit like that to you. But if you really trying to get to know and build and be serious with somebody, that's not the type of stuff that you would say. Like, and it just baffles me. Like this, so it's like you try to keep an open mind and maybe date outside of your box, and then you get assholes like that. Or I've been on a date and like you had someone talk to you about the wine glass, but I've had someone talk to me about my nails not being done, or I got lifter hands because I fucking can deadlift probably more than a lot of men. And that's what you want to talk about my hands? There's all this other positive stuff going on appearance wise, but you want to call out my hands. And what do you look like? So like, that's like so superficial, minor, dumb stuff. Like anybody who's going to tell you something appearance wise, like it's just a lot. We be going through a lot, like just trying to weed them out. We be going through a lot.
I don't know, man. I just feel like there's all types of movies and rap songs and even R&B songs nowadays in 2020 R&B that's defacing women all over the place. Like I won't contribute to that by any means. Like I'm going to be complimentary.
By any means.
I just won't say. I just or I just won't say anything at all. You know what I'm saying? But when you're trying to court a woman, like it's not, and you're rating women, like the last thing you want to say is, yeah, I think you're a 7. No, it's I think you're a 20, and here's why. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. If homeboy, if you're watching, you messed up, bro. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. So Kelvin, when I was saying new topic, it's funny because everything that we just talked about, from Bridget to Kelly back to you, Kelvin, actually goes into the new topic because it all relates, it correlates. I was going to talk about how being real and authentic and wanting to really get to know somebody and being intentional, right? It can lead to an interesting dynamic or question. And that's whether you're in a relationship, whether you're engaged, or whether you're married. And the topic is acceptance. So when I was engaged, and when during my marriage now, like we do counseling, right? So counseling is a big topic for us too. It's either something we still stray away from, or it's something that we're beginning to start do, or we have been doing, right, in our community specifically. Mm-hmm. And so I did premarital counseling, couples counseling. I do marriage counseling, right? And we happen to do premarital counseling with a prominent pastor in the DMV area at the time. And it's funny because we did this whole workbook, and the workbook is really great. But he also told us, look, like, the world is going to test you, and the things in life are going to test you. And you know the person, but do you know the whole person? And that actually came out in marriage counseling too. Like, how much do you really think you know that person? Because we all actually haven't exposed 100% of ourselves to who we're dating, who we're engaged with, to or who we're married to or with, right? And that takes time. And that goes back to that vulnerability, right? Like most people aren't boom, everything 100% on you, right? Like it takes time to get to all that, right? And that goes back to the acceptance piece. Like and this is for a man and a woman, when you're dating and you think you're about to get engaged, and you got some decisions to make. You got some questions to ponder, right? It's like, these are the pros, these are the cons. Do I accept this whole person? And I think a lot of people go wrong there because they don't even think about whether or not they accept the whole person. They may rush into different factors and considerations before they go into it. Because I mean, that's something that I'm dealing with in my marriage too. I'm not going to divulge too much, but even that whole acceptance factor. I'm not going to say on who has the issue with that or not, but but that's still an issue today, even within my marriage. Do you fully accept that whole person, knowing that they have pros and cons? They have their own issues, right? They're not perfect. But you got the things that you like, you got the things that you don't like. Do you truly accept them? Because to me, it almost is like this. If you don't, excuse me, I let it slip there. If you don't fully accept, how can you fully trust? And that is the root to a lot of issues.
Go ahead, Kelly.
So you said something like contradicts what you said, because you said, are you going to accept the good and the bad and blah, blah, blah. But then right before that, you said, you might not even know the whole person. So if you don't know the whole person, you might not know all the bad yet. You know what I mean? And this is like a little bit it's not random, but it like ties into this. By like not knowing the whole person, meaning, do you think, and Calvin, I don't know your entire situation, but do you think, Derek and Bridget, do you think that having a child sped up your marriage process? I mean, I had Winter before we got married too. Do you think that having a child before marriage sped up your marriage process? Because I feel like there's a possibility it could have, which could have, allowed you to not fully know that person. Do you think? Well, I don't know if you can answer that question on the podcast, but Calvin, your kids were after you got married or before?
So my kids are. So no, it hasn't sped up my decision making, and that's because I've been married before. So no, I'm not currently married, but I do have 2 children, right? And I am still with my children's mother. So, but it hasn't sped up the process at all because it's like I said, I've been there, done that. I want to make sure that all the wrinkles are ironed out, you know what I mean, before we dive in. So for me, no, but just to kind of touch on what Derek was talking about real quick. This is why I told my nieces and my little cousins and things like that, like 90 days, because it takes 22, 21, 22 days to form a habit, right? But if you're really good at what you do, and back when I was young in my early 20s, I was pretty good at what I did. I mean, I became an actor, right? So I could put on a facade for a very long time. but I'm just being honest, right? But 90 days is a long time to be in character, man. That's just a very long time. And if I don't have to spend 24/7 with you, then it's easier. But still, 90 days is a long time to keep up a facade. And how can you ever gain that trust or really accept someone, to Kelly's point, if you don't really know? You're making a decision based on who you think they are, who they've been telling you that they are, right? But you don't really know. So I think the biggest issue is that people are taking my choice away. I feel bad because I took the choice away from a lot of people back in the day. So I've learned now and I'm at the point now where I literally don't care who you are, whether it be a personal romantic relationship or professional, or if you're a venture capitalist. I'm having a lot of those conversations right now. Like, you got millions of dollars, right? It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel because I don't want to take your choice away. And I think that's important. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on that real quick. But yeah, to answer your question, Kelly, no, I don't. It hasn't sped up my process at all. At the same time, I feel like I'm doing what's in the best interest of our longevity. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know. That's for time to tell. But it hasn't really sped up my process, no.
I think it definitely sped up, our process when we were going through it. I think, to Kelvin's point, right, I'm second time around at this point if I'm going to do it again. So I think I would just move differently. But I do remember, because I was living in Maryland at the time, I asked my now ex-husband, I said, just because he was living in Pittsburgh and I was living down there, and I said, just because I'm pregnant doesn't mean we need to get married. I kind of just put that out there in the air, like, look, just in case you was feeling like you needed to, it's something that we have to do. And he still decided that that's how he wanted to pursue, right? But when it came down to being able, the sustainability of our relationship, he was the one that kind of tapped out first, right? He was kind of like, I can't do this. And I'm like, you said you wanted to do it. I had said earlier, that you didn't have to, like, so I resented that. I was like, I gave you the option, dude. Like, and I'm confused. Like, you had a way out. You could have been like deuces, and he didn't,
Yeah.
But I think for him, again, going back to perception and the outward man and the public man and the private man and those types of things, I think he wanted to make good on what it is that he had kind of put in the image and what he was putting into the world, right? And I don't know if 1,000%, thinking about it now, like, was it the worst thing to do? I don't know, I don't know it, but I think it did speed up the decision making process. I think some of the decisions again after were definitely some wrong things to do, but I think it definitely did impact our decision. For me, I was a little bit more, I would say, once I committed to it, because I'm a type of person, once I commit, there were some signs along the way after the commitment part of it, right? After the engagement, that, I had friends ask me and they were like, are you sure this is what you want to do?
Yeah.
And I was pissed at them. Like, I stopped talking to my friends for nearly a year. Because I'm like, well, when y'all was getting married, I wasn't questioning y'all. I wasn't questioning what y'all were doing. I was right behind you, right beside you, in whatever dress you put me in, with bells on. And but I think they were seeing something in the moment that I wasn't willing to see, right? And they were at a minimum just in with me. They weren't telling me not to marry the person. They just know who I am, and they knew who I was being at, or how I was showing up at that time. And I think that they were just like, we're not seeing 100% of who you are. Like, we're not saying that he's not the one, but maybe you need to heal a little bit first. Like, I dealt that with some postpartum. So they're like, maybe, they didn't maybe have the words to say all of that, but the way that they said it was, you good? Like, you sure you want to do this? And again, I think there were points in the relationship where I could have been like, no, we need to kind of chill out or wait or heal. I need to work on some things. You need to work on some things, but I didn't. So I think for me, it did. So for me, it did when I went to the commitment space. Once I committed, I was in it. I was ready to go. And I think for him, it did once I got pregnant.
So Kelly,
Mm-hmm.
Bridget, thanks for sharing that. You too, Kelvin. So Kelly, you ready for my answer?
Yeah, I'm gonna say yes, regardless of what you say. I'm gonna think it's budget process. But I don't know what you gonna say.
Yeah,
I think you're gonna say yes.
So I'm gonna let that marinate for a second before I get to the answer. Kelvin, I wanted to talk on your 90. I wanted to talk about your 90-day rule thing. So it's interesting because what we've all discussed in this conversation kind of relates to kind of the infatuation phase to we're here and we think we're real. Oh, now we're real, and in whatever other phases you get to, right? But in that beginning, what do you also get to, which alludes to or speaks to that 90 days, right? Everybody can't hold up a facade forever. So what do you meet? You meet that representative of that person up front. And then you got this middle ground inside that 90 days where it's like you get representative, but you get a little bit of real. And then you're like, it's okay. It's okay. I like you. I like you. And then you get that real. So it gets totally behind or beyond. Hey, Kelly. But it totally get beyond that representative in that middle ground phase, and now it's all real. And then you kind of, okay, well, I'm either going to accept this and stick with it or I'm not. So Kelvin, good point. but then my answer to the question, did having children out of wedlock expedite my process to get married? We're gonna have to talk about the church and faith in this at another point, not in this conversation, but later. But it's funny, Kelly. My answer is not yes. My answer is no.
Mm.
And I will elaborate on that. So I actually met my wife and we started dating, right? And we got pregnant early into dating. So we had just gotten to a point where like, okay, well, we're going to really try this, right? And then we get pregnant. And then it's like, oh, whoa. And that was heavy. Like keeping it funky, like that was real heavy. And coming from a guy like me that came from a single mother household, and I vowed to never do the same thing that my dad did to me. I took that seriously, and I told her when she gave me the call. I was literally like parking at a field to go play softball because I left her apartment, and she gave me a call. I was like, oh shit, my stomach dropped, and I was like, yeah. She was like, yeah, I'm pregnant. I was like, oh.
That fast, bro?
but what did I say? But what did I say to her? I was like, you know what? I'm at a place. I've always known that I was going to step up and be a father no matter what. And I was luckily in a place where I was doing well and on a good trajectory in my career. So I prepared myself for being either a husband or a father. So I was like, you know, it's up to you. That is totally your decision on what we do and how we move forward from here. So we maintained in our relationship, but that was really hard during that process, right? And I'll tell you something. I think Kelvin and I are similar. I hadn't been married before, and Kelvin had been married before. But something in me, and it may have been the spirit of God, but something told me, dude, you don't need to get married because you are expecting a child. You need to at least give this an opportunity in a relationship to see and explore and learn each other to see if you can get to that phase. So I'll just get the dates out there. That was like 2012, 2013. My son was born in 2013. I didn't get married until the latter end of 2017. And I consciously did that because I needed to see more about myself personally. And I needed to see more about myself with my now wife in that time. And I needed to see more about her because I wasn't ready to commit to a marriage at that point. And I'll leave it at that. But yeah, no, I didn't. It didn't expedite the process. I will add, even though it did not expedite my process, I cannot lie and say being a parent and a co-parent didn't play a factor now, or it didn't turn something in my brain, right? Like that does play a role and have an effect, but I still consciously tried to make sure I was vetting the process, if you will. That, I don't know, men, women might not like that I'm saying it, but I had to consciously vet that process before I got to that phase.
Let's switch gears just a little bit and have this grass is greener conversation. Just real quick. Only because, you know, social media, right? It's a part of our life, man. It's crazy how prolific social media has become, and it gets a lot of people in trouble. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, seen a lot of blow ups over liked pictures and just follows and defollows and all this type of stuff. Unfollow, shall I say? See, I told you I'm not a big on social media, but
DMs and unfollow.
Like how? Yeah. So how do you guys? What do you get? What are your feelings about social media? Because for me, here's how I view it. Right, and I'm gonna do a car analogy, right? I might see a Lamborghini and I like a Lamborghini. Like it's dope. I like it. I would never buy it. I like it. I'm more of a Rolls Royce, Bentley kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? Like I want comfort, not like just speed. Go for it. You know what I mean? So I mean, how do you guys feel about the whole social media and guys seeing other women? And then and then okay, side note, and then I'm gonna shut up. I promise. Like just because a man gets in a relationship, he's not blind. Just like women don't stop finding men attractive once they get into a relationship. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I just don't like. How do you guys feel about that?
I think there's a social media etiquette that should be practiced when you're in a relationship. Period. Whether you married or in a relationship. Yes, like the fitness pictures. Like a picture of somebody smiling because they're beautiful, like you said. You have eyes, but are you gonna like the picture of a chick with her ass out? No. Or I'm like certain fitness pictures that are a little
No.
more risky, you might not shouldn't like. Like I have some maybe a little bit more riskier where I'm poking my butt out more or something. Probably shouldn't like those pictures if you're in a relationship or married. Probably shouldn't put a certain kind of comment under those
Right.
pictures, but you also got to know who you're dating and who you're dealing with too. Certain partners may not care at all. Like, may not care at all. But I mean, I just think it's a level of respect. So, I don't know. It just really depends. I just think there's, like I said, a certain etiquette on how you do it and who you do it with. I don't think you should be having a lot of communication with your exes on there if you're dealing with someone new or you marry. I don't think you should do that. And I just like I said, I just think there's certain etiquette, but that's what social media is for, is to like pictures in the comment. But just, you wouldn't do anything that's like borderline. And I guess the conversation would have to be what's borderline. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
and it's gonna be different. It's gonna be different for everyone. I think for singles, I still think we need to be thoughtful about the things that we follow, what we like, what we comment on, right? But I think that for a single, it's a place that you could meet somebody. You could definitely meet somebody on a social media outlet. So I think it's a great tool if you're using it or however you're using it. So, but I think for someone who's married, again, going back to like that communication, if I'm not comfortable with something or you're not comfortable with something, we need to figure out what that looks like in action. And there may be some decisions at certain points in time to unfollow people or not connect with them. And that's just making, like, again, grown-up decisions. Like, but I do that as a single as well. I don't have to engage in every single piece of content just because I can, just because I am. So that doesn't mean that I need to, want to, or should. So I think that there's a level of just maturity and I think to Kelly's point, like, right, the social media etiquette, I love Kelly's, like, that's my girl's, like, I love her page and I like everything. But if my husband was on there liking everything on Kelly's page, I'm like, hey, you on here? That picture was dope. But, so I mean, and this is somebody that I love and care for, but I still would feel some type of way. Why? Because in the act of it, it feels somewhat inappropriate, even though I know he may follow her and he may see it, right? Like, I don't know. I think there's this like fine line, but I think we all have, like, especially in a marriage, we have a very the onus is on us as an individual to make sure that we're protecting and taking care of that other person. And if that means that we need to make decisions that to forego certain things in order to do that, then sometimes we just got to do that, and then, what can you experience together that is okay for both of you, or what things is that person comfortable with you experiencing, as it relates to social media, interacting with photos and things like that, because you never know. Maybe you haven't had that conversation with them yet. So
I'll bring this up,
But yeah.
and it may be faux pas and people don't really bring it up, but I've been speaking with some peers and people a little bit older than us that have been married and are parents. And an unfortunate reality, I'm gonna say it's unfortunate, and an unfortunate reality in marriage, in some relationships where you're co-parenting, comes that you're not coming. Or well, so what I mean by that is people. I'm actually okay with having sex with or sexual relations with one person, whether it's the same or not, right? I'm okay with it being with that one person. What I'm not okay with is if I force us to stop having sexual relations, or if the spouse or partner stops and enforces the stoppage of sexual relations, especially in marriage. Because, like, here's my question: why am I married if I can't even have sex? So I don't like people hold sex hostage, because, especially in marriage, because that's a part of it.
Yeah.
And it's not always women who do that.
Yeah, you heard how I said it, right? It was like, if I've said it, I put it on me first. I'm like, it could be me, or it could be the other person, right? I don't care who you are. I think it's wrong.
It is.
So is it cheating if you're not getting it at home and you go and get it from somewhere else? Is that still considered cheating?
Of course. Of course.
I agree. I was just asking.
Of course.
I'm asking this question. Yes.
Hey, look.
Raise my blood pressure over here.
Hey, look, real talk.
That might be a promo.
Look, real talk. It's wrong, but
it's understandable.
But I understand. It's wrong, but I understand.
Come on now. All right. So if a man is doing everything in his power to get you to have sex with him, including everything that's on your list of things to do, and you still don't give it to him, what is a man supposed to do? What are your expectations of a man if you said, I'll need A, B, and C done in order to fix us? And the man says, okay, I'll work on it. 2 weeks later, he comes back and says, I did this, and I did this. I've been a good boy. Can I please get some new shoe? Can I please get some new shoe? You know what I'm saying? Like, and you say, nah, I ain't feeling it. I need more time.
There's something called long suffering. Now, here's the deal. I'm not saying it's right, because it ain't right. I'm gonna say that again. It ain't right. People shouldn't be doing that to each other. However, you committed to the relationship, right? And there may be some other things going on that you have no idea, right? That are going on. You just, maybe some things that I'm embarrassed to talk about, or he's embarrassed to talk about, or whatever. Again, if you can get through that, what's on the other side will be so beautiful, right? And I think if we can get through the fact that maybe it's a manipulative thing that they learned somewhere else that they shouldn't have brought into the marriage, right? There's always some amazing things that can come on the end of the work. But sometimes the work is long suffering long, and sometimes it's not fun. But we got to be really careful to put the bad decisions that we make on maybe some things that are going on with that other person. I just think we got to be careful with that. So to me, I'm not giving no passes for no stuff. I'm not giving passes for stuff like that. Again, if things happen, we work through it. We made those choices together. That's a different thing. But we're not giving passes for bad behavior. Even if I'm in a space where at this point, I don't know what else. My way of doing whatever is saying no. But again, it's not always just, you know, it goes both ways because I've experienced it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's that's an important point. Yeah, that's an important point because you know, Derek, you know, you say this all the time. You know, people need to listen to understand and not necessarily listen to respond. And I think when you do that, you're able to fully understand that other person's perspective, right? So you can make a decision that's not uh that can make a bad situation worse, man. And when you really think about it, you know, especially if somebody's going through a real struggle like depression, right, or anxiety, you know, you can send that person over the ledge. So you gotta be really careful about those types of things. So while I do understand that, you know, a physiological need is not being, I don't even know if I said the word right, but it's not being met.
That works. I think that works.
You know, at the same time, like I think there's something to being loyal. You know what I'm saying? Which begs the question: at the end of the day, um, do we get married or not? Are we recommending marriage, or are we saying to hell with it? Just get to know each other and live a happy life together. Like, what are we saying? Or neither? Look, Kelly's like, hell nah.
I don't say hell no. I just don't. I don't say hell no. I just am just a lot more cautious, and
Oh,
it's just gonna be somebody's gonna have to really woo me. And like you said, I don't know if it's gonna be the 90 days, but it's gonna take some time. And you know, it's just gonna be a lot. But I'm not gonna say no. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna say no, but
I would say yes, I'd recommend getting married. What are some caveats? Probably lots of caveats, but I don't have time for lots, probably just a few. I think the first is that, and something that maybe we've touched on a little bit, but maybe not as much, is just about the fact that there's this idea of racism, systematic racism, like our ancestors being brought here as slaves, us being separated, our families being separated, you know, during slavery, heinous, unimaginable things being done to Black men in front of Black women, and Black women in front of Black men, and Black children, and, you know, all of these things, right? Just kind of bringing that, the history of, you know, our people into kind of today. There's nothing that's really built for the Black community to survive, right? And because it's not built for us in, you know, in America. And from that standpoint, that goes into the Black family, right? The Black community is the Black family. And so if the Black family can't survive, then the Black community can't survive, then the Black race can't survive, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So I say, yes, continue to do things to kill that narrative, to bust down that narrative, to basically put us in a space where these are things that we can do, but it's not, society hasn't put up there's no foundation or scaffolding for it to work. We are the foundation at this point. And I think one of the things that I've been thinking a lot deeper about is not just civil equality, not just racial equality, but economic equality. So there's, to me at this point, when it comes to marriage, there's the economics piece to it. And so when I'm thinking about getting married, who am I building with? Who am I creating general wealth with? Who am I making moves with, right? Like at this point, it's about love, but that ain't it, because we got work to do. There's other things that need to be done. Now, do I need to carry the weight of the world of everything on my shoulders? Maybe not necessarily, but when I think about my lineage, I do need to think about that. And I need to think about that intentionally and deeply. And we do need to take the time to get to know each other, to decide whether or not we want to be tied to someone's destiny that could potentially be putting us in a position to be breaking economic chains and things that have been put on us for however many years they've been put on us. So it's deeper than just don't get married or do get married. Yeah, don't or do, right? Don't or do. Make that, it's your world. If you don't want, it's your world. If you don't want to get married, don't get married. If you do want to get married, get married. But understand the implications of what your union might mean. And I think we go into it thinking more about what we're going to get out of it than what we're actually going to be able to, produce out of it. Because it's we're creating a relationship to produce. It's not always kids, but we're doing it to produce something. So that's kind of my take. Sure, get married, yeah, but I think it's a little deeper than just a ring and a ceremony and a party, and turning up. Although I like that part too.
Agreed. DT, what you think?
Quiet as kept. I think the ladies are spot on. I don't think we need to say very much, but we're gonna say something anyway. So that being said, I appreciate my answer is make your own decision, but do your due diligence and know that people out here saying that marriage is easy are bullshitting you. And you prepare yourself prior to marriage, and during marriage and after marriage. Continue to prepare yourself because it is work. Be ready.
To borrow a phrase from the prophet brother Neo, I'm good all by myself, but I'm a force when we're together.
Yeah.
Listen, I get it. It's hard, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna say yes. Do get married because with some caveats, right? Like Bridget said, do get married because I think it's important to present a united front when it comes to healing, or rectifying all the different things that we need to change in this country so that we can live productive lives, right? So I think it just works better when we're together. At the end of the day, women have been the cornerstone of my life, whether it be my mother, grandmother, sisters, past relationships. Like I've learned something from every single woman that has been in my life. I just think we're better together. But at the end of the day, we gotta stop taking choices away from one another, right? That's my big thing. And it's cliche to say keep it a buck, but it's the truth. Gotta keep it a buck. I always say I can learn so much from the truth, but the only thing I learned from a lie is that the person who told it can't be trusted, right? So be yourself and don't get married until you are willing to be completely honest about who you are. Nobody's ever gonna divulge every single thing about themselves to someone immediately, but at the same time, you can still be honest, and not have to. Do you know how liberating it is never to have to worry about keeping up with a lie? So much stress just gets taken off your shoulders. I ain't got to lie about nothing. I could just go on and speak freely and, respectfully, of course, but just keep it a buck with yourself and others. And as long as you do that, then I say, go ahead and get married, man. Marriage is a beautiful thing when done correctly with the right person. That's where I stand.
And I know we're wrapping. I had another quick thought. When I was looking for something to put on for this, like right from like so I could be cute kind of from the waist up. I was looking around and I saw this shirt, and this is the warrior woman, the bald head warrior woman from Black Panther.
Okoye.
What was her name?
Okoye.
Yeah. So, and I was like, this is perfect. And what is so cool, I think, about the symbolism in her character and her, I guess, I don't know, it was the chief or the boyfriend or whatever, they ended up having a romantic connection, was that they were both on the front lines together. They were out there, they were warriors, and they were doing it together. And when, there was that one scene when he was getting ready to get charged, I guess, and he was getting ready to get whacked by some animal or something. And all you see is her spear coming past him and killing whatever the threat was for him. And I think that there's such a some beautiful symbolism in the fact that, right, like as a people, we are, I mean, we're crazy. We have just there's so many beautiful and amazing things about us. But when we're working in a space where the woman is seeing things that y'all might not be seeing coming, right? And we're here, we're gonna throw that spear, we're gonna knock that thing out. The man is out there and he's making decisions and trying to, like, when we're all operating in our strengths and operating, right, it doesn't mean it takes away from anyone. It doesn't mean that we can't be independent. It doesn't mean that you can't be a provider. It doesn't mean that, we can't, have a lot to say and be vocal. It doesn't mean, like, we don't have to, there's no reason to have to minimize the most beautiful parts of us. We just have to figure out how to maximize them, how to collaborate, how to work together. And then I think we'll be able to really be able to slay dragons, or for lack of a better way to say it, there's nothing that we can't do together, right, Kelvin? There's nothing that we can't do together. And we're warriors. We are warriors. We are built that way. We are built that way. That is who we are inherently. So I was just like, oh, the shirt. I thought about it, wanted to share it. So.
Well said. Well said. Well, to echo Derek's point, I am truly, truly blessed and honored and appreciative to have you two on today. You guys, you ladies, you women did not disappoint at all. It was a pleasure. And I think a lot of people are going to benefit from this conversation, and it wouldn't have been able to happen without you two. So I am eternally grateful.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, folks. Well, this has been another episode of By Any Means.
By Any Means.
Absolutely. Thanks for checking us out. Actually, you know what? We're going to be live on Wednesday night. So come back on Wednesday. Let us know what you thought about the conversation that we all had. And who knows, maybe we can convince Bridget and Kelly to come back and join live with us, and we can do this all thing again. We'll see. Yeah. All right. Peace out. Have a good night, guys.
Peace. Thanks. Good night.